Ms. Legalista here. Thank you for joining the video. We're back to talk about Dominique Side, the person who was operating an escrow company where she was holding funds for surrogacy that was supposed to be taking place. You've got parents over here that want to have a kid. You've got a person over here who's willing to carry that kid to term for them. And then the new intended parents are going to get this baby. Well, a lot of this money is now gone. She has been trying to start her music career, and they are alleging that she used their funds to do this. Now, a lot of her website and information has been taken down, but her Pinterest site appears to still be up. I want to start off with that, and then we're going to jump into this injunction. And we're going to talk about, specifically at some point in time, this $4 million in equipment that has been claimed on her tax returns. But let's just take a minute here to go to a Pinterest site that looks like it's probably hers, Dominique Side, vegan artist boss. You see she's got some followers there, but I want to go over here to some pins in particular, because those are the ones that really give us a little bit more information about her, some of what she was working on, this music career that she was trying to build. Also, this other brand it looks like that she had, and where some of this money went. Well, these pictures might actually give us some insight into where some of this money has gone. Now, we're also going to take a look at the injunction. We're going to break this injunction down piece by piece. This is going to be part one. We're going to break it down piece by piece and talk about some things in this injunction. We're also going to go back to the lawsuit, but that'll be another video. So remember, one of the things she said was that she was starting this music career. Here, she had the camera set up. It looks like she was going to do some recording here in this instance. In this one, I think she's just sort of, not sure what's going on there. I guess, yeah. And then we have an actual performance part here.
We need everybody to run in the clap with us on 3, 2, 1, let's go. Clap, 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 clap. We need you to clap for him.
Well, I'm not really sure. I'm gonna let you guys watch that. Not a whole lot going on there. And then she's just got a lot of pictures here. I guess practicing some dance moves here. I mean, somebody can fault her for having a lot of interest and wanting to do different things with her life. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The problem comes when you're taking other people's money, when you're taking money that you have said you're going to keep secure, that you are going to watch out for, that you aren't going to be the one to scam them out of the money, and yet you are. And it's not even like it's just a business transaction. You have people here who are trying to build families and who, for whatever reason, have decided that this is the route that they're going to go. They need you to be a part of it, and yet you go take this money from them. So we've got a number of other pictures
We need everybody in the
and
building
videos
to clap with
here.
us.
I don't know if YouTube's going to let me show all this stuff. This was a concert, I guess, that was going on. And I'm going to do a separate video here about that sort of just goes through some of the just the Pinterest site. But you get an idea of who she was when you go to the Pinterest site, and you can check out what she had going on. Stuff, music. And I don't know if I'd call her a rapper. Some of the other media had called her a rapper. I don't know. It sounds like she's doing a bunch of different things. It looks like some clothing businesses. Anyway, so you get the gist, right? You get the gist. She's got a company, an escrow company, and she's also got some other interests. And the allegations are that she took that money to fund her other interests. And that appears to be the big issue. But let's jump over to this injunction that has now been put in place. She did not show up for this hearing. Keep in mind that she was not there. She did a disappearing act. Her business partner, her music business partner, was there. She was not. Injunction, this whole case, and I know I'm doing it a little bit backwards, starting with the injunction first, because I think that's the important piece. Right now, they want to stop the bleeding, right? Where is the money going? Wherever it's going, can we stop, please? Because this is our money and we did not approve for it to go wherever it's been going. This particular one is just listing one of the plaintiffs here. So you have tons of other people who are parties to this. I'm going to show you the long list of people, families. Notice the name. It's going to say families and the amount of money that they have given her. So the name of the company is actually Surrogacy Escrow Account Management LLC, doing business as SEAM LLC. Dominique Side, aka Dominique Q Hawkins, aka Dominique Curran individually, Life Escrow LLC, Anthony Hall individually, and DBA 7800 Amelia Studios and 2061 Records. So we've got a lot of parties in this case, not just on the defendant side, though on the plaintiff side too. This just happens to be this one filing. This is down in Harris County in Texas. Okay, so we had this injunction here, okay, filed by plaintiff. It says the court also heard the application for temporary restraining order. Look at all these people listed here. Oh my goodness, it is a lot. This is going to be very messy. This is not going to be pretty at all. This is the court having reviewed the petition and considered the arguments of the intended parents' counsel, finds that the intended parents may suffer a probable, imminent, and irreparable injury for which there is no adequate remedy at law if a temporary restraining order does not issue. The court finds the following. Okay, so the court made some findings here. Let's go through each one of these. It says defendant SEAM is a company that provides surrogacy escrow account management services to married couples and females that have agreed to act as their surrogate. SEAM is solely owned by defendant Dominique Side. And then we have Dominique and Denson. It says SEAM was originally owned by defendant Frederick Denson. Okay, now that's a new one because I did not know that. Who is Frederick Denson? We have not heard his name in the news as much as we have heard hers. I can imagine this tracking the financial records is going to go way back, probably from the time he sold it to her going forward. They're going to want to make sure that some of this didn't happen under his watch. And I'm sure he's very concerned and watching what is going on. It says Dominique and Denson are insiders of SEAM pursuant to Texas Business and Commercial Code. It says until recently, let's scroll down a little bit, Dominique also owned interests in Vegan Bay Music Group, Inc. You see the names listed there. And Nikki Green, LLC. Defendant Anthony Hall, which is supposed to be the business partner on the music side of things, is Dominique's business partner in those entities. Defendant Christopher Thompson also appears to be Dominique's business partner in Nikki Green, LLC. Now, let me stop here for a second and just sort of talk about who you get into bed with, because that is really what's going on here. I tell people, when you have these business relationships with other people, it's like being married to them. You're married to all of the good stuff that they have, and you're married to all of the bad stuff that they have. So it is very wise to make sure that you vet these people, you do your research, investigate, ask questions, get referrals before you decide that this is someone you're going to go into business with. I have worked with clients in the past who've been like, I knew I should not have gone. I knew, like, I felt like things weren't right. And I tell people, if you feel that way, that is your brain trying to warn you and tell you this is not for you. This is not for you. So be, mindful, keep your eyes open. Don't just sort of brush off these feelings that you have about someone when they say, hey, let's do this together or let's do that together. And I understand that a lot of times you're working with people that, maybe in your community, you've done other things with in other organizations, and you feel like you can trust them. You feel like you know them. Maybe you've known them your entire lives, but that doesn't mean that you need to go into business with them. Okay. That is entirely different. That's different. And you just tell them that. I tell my clients to blame it on me, like blame it on the attorney. Say, well, my attorney looked over everything and my attorney said that given some of the things I'm trying to do, that this probably just is not the thing. This just is not the thing. And I'm sorry. It's like every time I start a video, everything starts running. My eyes, my nose. The intended parents all entered into an escrow agreement with SEAM, whereby SEAM became the intended parents' escrow agent in charge of managing their escrow funds. Part of SEAM's obligation as the intended parents' escrow agent was to hold the intended parents' escrow funds, client trust funds, review the expenses incurred by their surrogates, and distribute payments to the surrogate as agreed upon by the intended parties and the surrogates. Some of this makes me wonder how they even found this company. Like, how are they being referred to her? How is she advertising? Because it also makes me wonder, what kind of research they did. And even if you do your research, you don't always know. People can be great for 10 years and then all of a sudden things just sort of fall apart because sometimes things fall apart. That's what happens, right? Life is not always perfect. It says SEAM was required to only make payments as authorized by the intended parents and their surrogates in writing. They were supposed to put that stuff in writing. She wasn't supposed to be able to send money out. Okay. SEAM was required to maintain an account statement. I need to slow down. SEAM was required to maintain an account statement accessible to the intended parents and their surrogates. SEAM was required to notify the intended parents if the amount of their client trust funds were less than $5,000. SEAM was also required to notify the intended parents when all of the client trust funds had been dispersed. It's typical of just having a trust fund for other parties. You are supposed to maintain accounts, ledgers that show what's coming in, what's going out, when it's going out, who it's going out to. Is there a receipt that shows why it was going out to them? If you are not the type of person who likes to cross your T's and dot your I's, then this is not a business you should have. Okay. You should not be doing this for other people. And most certainly, if your intent is to take that money and use it for your own purpose, then you definitely shouldn't be in this business. Look at the funds shown here. Look at the amount of money and look at how look at how this is listed. Okay. Intended parents. It doesn't say like Jack and Jill Baker. Okay. It calls them the family, the Clymer family, the Kellison family, the Clatt family, the Ladd family. You know, it really personalizes what's going on and reminds you that these people were trying to build a family. This is not us going out and buying oranges and somebody committed fraud with the oranges. That's not what this is. This is not us trying to buy furniture. That's not what this is. This is us trying to start a family, and look at the money we gave you so that we could start our family. So, it says something when you see family listed there and the amount of money that they deposited with her. Look at those numbers. 61,000, 55,000, 62, 47, $97,000. Look at that, 96, 80. And then we hit $100,000 there, 70, 30. And look, just because it's a high number, that person who paid 100,000 and that person who paid, I don't know, 31,000, that one who paid 31,000, this is just as hurtful to them as it is to the person that paid 100,000. This is hurtful to both of them. It doesn't matter how much you paid, because this was about building a family. And she has made that really hard now because they're not sure if they're going to get this money back and be able to pay these surrogates. It says it appears that some of these funds were used to pay the intended parents' surrogates as agreed. Okay, some of it was. However, not all of the funds were paid to the surrogates. On or about June 4th, 2024, the intended parents received notifications from SEAM that their accounts had been put on hold by Capital One due to fraudulent charges. Okay. The notification informed the intended parents that its deposit instructions would be updated with a new deposit account where the trust client funds would be deposited. Now, just take a look at this for a second. This, you've got this notification from SEAM saying, okay, everything's on hold and we're going to update you with where this new deposit's going to be. I mean, I'm sure for the parents at that time, it's just like, wait, what is going on here? What is going on? On June 14th, SEAM and Dominique sent an email to all of SEAM's clients informing them that, quote, let's read this part here, this part right here, this part. Well, okay, I'm not doing well with the highlight. Let's hit the highlighter over here so that we can highlight. Oh, and then I have on the bad, look at this. Oh, this is awful. I have on the bad highlighter here. Oh, I mean, I can't even color between the lines. This is horrible. Look at this. All right, I definitely need to get fix that, right? All right, let's get rid of that. Due to legal action, all operations have been placed on hold. What do you mean all operations? I mean, imagine getting this email, okay, not a phone call, not an email and a follow-up phone call with an explanation, but an email that says due to legal action. Like, what kind of legal action? Like, if I'm reading that, that's my first question. I'm thinking, what kind of legal action? What do you mean by legal action? Are you being sued? Are you suing someone else? Did something happen? It says due to legal action, all operations have been placed on hold. At this time, I am unable to provide further details regarding this matter. Can you imagine being told, okay, we've got some legal action going on. I'm going to have to put everything on hold, and no, I can't answer your questions or give you any details. Like, who is going to feel okay about that? Who is going to feel okay about that? Not a single person I know. None of my clients would, and nor should they. The evidence shows that SEAM's escrow accounts do not have sufficient funds to pay the intended parents' escrow fees. As a result of SEAM's conduct, the intended parents have, I guess I should say have, incurred actual damages in the amounts listed below, plus their reasonable and necessary attorney fees and court costs. Look at this, okay? So here are their actual damages here. Look, these are not small numbers. These are not small numbers. I don't see anything, outside of the tens of thousands. I see you get down to maybe 13, but that's, again, they were trying to build families. The total amount of the intended parents' actual damages to date are over $1 million. They have also incurred attorney's fees, court costs, other expenses. It says the intended parents did not authorize SEAM to transfer all of the client trust funds from the escrow account. Likewise, SEAM has not notified intended parents that all of the client trust funds have been dispersed to people or entities that are not their surrogates. Therefore, it is likely that the intended parents will prevail on their causes of action for breach of contract and breach of fiduciary duty. The evidence shows that it is likely improbable that SEAM misappropriated millions of its clients' escrow funds, according to the intended parents' forensic accountant, Jeffrey Davidson. Bank records show that once the escrow funds were received, SEAM transferred them to an operating account. Much of the funds were transferred to other accounts, including a RAMP account, Amex, JP Morgan, and other accounts at Capital One Bank. Okay, so here's where things start to get interesting. Dominique transferred more than $2.2 million of the intended parents' escrow funds to herself. Now, let's stop here for a second. If you're a company and you're getting paid, like, I don't know what the payment arrangement was in terms of how she got paid, when she provided services, what her billing looked like. And yes, she should be paid for her services. But look at what this says here. It says Dominique transferred more than $2.2 million of the intended parents' escrow funds to herself. SEAM's 2023 tax returns show that it has $4,421,000. Look, $4.4 million in equipment. What kind of equipment? What kind of equipment does an escrow company need to have that comes up to $4.4 million. I cannot, I mean, how many computers, software, pens and pencils? I mean, eh, I don't know. I can't even think of how you get to that number. 4.4 million in equipment. Bank records also show that SEAM transferred more than 4.9 million of the intended parents' escrow funds to pay an Amex card that appeared to be related to her music group, a music studio owned by Dominique and defendant Anthony Hall. The group is referred to as Vegan Based Studios. Hall is Dominique's business partner and an insider of SEAM. Look, when they had the court hearing, the media showed him coming out and they asked him if he thought he had benefited from this. And he said no. It's one thing to be her business partner in the music group and she's writing checks and depositing money into their account. He doesn't know that she has misappropriated those funds from SEAM, from the parents, from the family's accounts. Unless he is in that business and looking at that. He doesn't know that. In his head, he's thinking, well, wait, we're setting this up. She's investing money. I don't know what she does, or does he? Or does he? You know, all of these are going to be questions that he's going to have to answer. In addition to the 4.4 million in equipment, don't you like how they keep putting the quotations around equipment? Because they're like me, they are confused too. What kind of equipment do you have in an escrow company? I just can't get there. That adds up to 4.4 million when you're a solopreneur. I can imagine, yes, you may have a lot more equipment if you have 15 employees working for you. I'm not sure how we're getting there. In addition to the 4.4 million in equipment, the tax returns also report that SEAM owns 1.296 in furniture and equipment. Records reviewed by Mr. Davidson show that the music equipment and other fixtures in the studio space may be worth between 700,000 and 1.3 million. So he's saying that's what we're talking about, that money was spent on this music equipment. That's what it looks like. SEAM also paid $21,000 per month to rent the building that houses the music studio from defendant. 7800 Amelia LP, and it says 7800 Amelia LP recently listed the building for sale for $3.5 million. The real estate listing advertises that much of the music equipment and fixtures purchased with the intended parties' escrow funds will be sold with the building. Wow. Okay. Really? There's nothing in the bank records that show Vegan Based Studios provided goods or services to SEAM in exchange for those payments. SEAM's 2023 tax returns show it has 1.4 million in other investments. In the previous year, SEAM did not own any current assets. Mr. Davidson testified that in 2023, SEAM transferred $275,000 of the escrow funds to defendant Nikki Green LLC, which appears to be Dominique's clothing line. I saw some of the clothing, the green suit. The green suit was kind of cute. Some of the other stuff was a bit revealing for me. It is possible that the clothing inventory is included in SEAM's 2023 tax returns as other current assets. But think about this. You know, I tell people this all the time when they want to mix stuff up. Like, this is why I tell people don't do this. Do not do this. Don't start commingling different accounts in different businesses. Nikki Green LLC is an entirely different business. It's a limited liability corporation. It's separate from SEAM. You want to have separate bank accounts. You're not just moving money back and forth between the two of them on some sort of arbitrary basis because you think one can fund the other. That's not the way this works. That's not the way this works. All right, let's go back here. So it says here, it is possible that the clothing inventory is included in SEAM's 2023 tax returns as other current assets. Nikki Green LLC appears to be the designer clothing company owned by Dominique Hall and defendant Christopher Thompson. There is nothing in the bank records that show Nikki Green provided goods or services to SEAM in exchange for those payments. So they're saying, those transfers were just really not legitimate and should not have taken place. SEAM's 2023 tax returns shows that it owns 4.4 million in other assets. Exhibits were introduced showing that up until June 14th, 2024, it shows SEAM owned a 5-acre tract of land in Houston worth, look at how much this is worth, over $500,000. Yes, 5-acre tract of land in Houston that SEAM owned. What? As the bank records do not show any other means for SEAM to have generated enough revenue to purchase the 5-acre tract, it is likely that escrow funds were used to buy the 5-acre tract. Well, at least maybe they can sell that and get some of the money back. It also appears the escrow funds were used to purchase real estate located at 6712 Winton Street, Houston, Texas, in the name of defendant Vegan Bay Properties. Well, okay, there's some more money there. According to Harris County Appraisal District, the Winton property is worth at least $433,000. Likewise, it is likely that escrow funds were used to build a $300,000 home in New Orleans, Louisiana, that is listed as being owned by Dominique. Okay, how did she think this was going to play out? That's the piece that I can't understand. How did she think this was going to play out? There are records that show transfers from one account to another account, mainly from the escrow accounts to accounts owned by her to purchase properties. Did she not think that at some point in time, when it came time for her to then pay the surrogates and the money wasn't there, the intended parents were just gonna what did she think they were going to do? I don't understand how the rational thinking side of the brain just gets totally switched off here. Like, I don't know, the light bulb, it's not even switched off. The light bulb is totally removed. Like, you're just not even thinking clearly here. I don't understand, because if you're thinking this through, you know that this is never going to work and that this is going to end badly for you and badly for those intended parents and families also. This is likewise. So now we've got, look at the properties that we have here. Okay. So we've got the 5-acre tract in Houston worth at least $575,000. Then we've got the Winton Street property that's in the name of Vegan Bay Properties for over 400,000. And then we've got this home that's been built in New Orleans that looks like it's about $300,000. So if they can show that these properties were purchased using funds from these escrow accounts, then they can possibly maybe sell those to come back up with the funds to give back to those parties who just didn't agree to have this done with their money. Okay, let's just put it that way. Mr. Davidson testified that the bank records show over $500,000 of the intended parents' escrow funds were transferred to SEAM's former owner, Frederick Denson. Okay, now we get to hear a little bit more about this. There's nothing in the bank records that show he provided goods or services to SEAM in exchange for those payments. Now, remember I said in the beginning, this is the first time we really heard about him, Frederick Denson. It looks like he got $500,000 for doing what? What was he doing? And did these families approve of this transfer? Mr. Davidson also testified that Hall received transfers of escrow funds of at least $541,000 that had been funneled through Vegan Bay Studios. Additionally, on January 14, 2024, SEAM conveyed the 5-acre tract, which is around, okay. Yes, like this is an entirely video. Like, I'm going to take just this section out about these property transfers. Look at this. I want you to look at this. Transferred this property to him for $10. Remember, he said in that hearing, at the end of that hearing, when media asked him if he benefited from this, he said no. How do you explain this? Because this looks like a benefit to me. That property is worth around $575,000. And it got transferred to him for $10. $10. Can you imagine those families seeing these numbers? On June 17, 2024, Dominique informed Capital One that she is no longer associated with Vinbay and that Anthony Hall had become sole owner of Vegan Bay Studios. I don't know what to say. Mr. Davidson also testified that on June 14th, defendant Kevin Yancey, well, who is he? Individually and doing business as Turner Yancey Investments, received direct transfer of the intended parents' escrow funds of at least $10,000. So he got sent $10,000 for what? Would like to know. Well, maybe this might provide some additional information here. We've got some hard money lenders. They received some escrow funds. And you see those amounts listed here: Pearl Funding, Dynasty Capital, Highland Hill Capital, On Deck, Prosperum. There is nothing in the bank records that show any of these lenders provided reasonably equivalent value to any of the intended parents in exchange for those payments. Likewise, none of the intended parents appear to have authorized those payments. None. Therefore, these lenders are likely transferees. On March 2nd, 2024, Hall formed a new escrow company. Now, this is Hall. Hall is now like, I'm going to do my own thing too. This is looking kind of good. Really? Hall formed a new escrow company called Life Escrow LLC. Life Escrow LLC's principal place of business is located at the exact same business address as SEAM, the building owned by defendant 7800 Amelia LP. SEAM and Dominique may have transferred any escrow funds remaining in SEAM's account as of June 14, 2024, if any, to bank accounts in the name of Life Escrow LLC. Like, I just don't know. Now, at this point, it's starting to look like that maybe he had some inside knowledge. I don't know. That could be the case, but there are some transfers going on here. Look at this. There's some transfers going on here. So he definitely is going to have a little bit of explaining to do with that. On or about June 14th, 2024, Dominique also transferred any assets that she claimed to own, including her membership in Vegan Bay Studios, and Vegan Bay Properties, to Hall. So she transferred everything to him. And if you go back and look at the court hearing that some of the media has put out there, he did say she transferred everything to him and that he was going to try to get it right. That's what he said. He said something like, I was trying to make it right. The Texas Secretary of State shows that once ownership of Vegan Bay Properties was transferred to Hall, he quickly changed its name to Crestline Property Investments LLC. And yes, he may be a transferee and received some of this also. On or about June 14th, 2024, June was a busy month for these people. I'm not sure how they kept up with everything that was going on. On or about June 14th, 2024, Dominique transferred $45,000 in cash to Hall. For what? Where are the receipts, invoices? For what? According to Mr. Davidson, bank records show that cash came from escrow funds. There is nothing in the bank records that show that Hall provided reasonably equivalent value to any of the intended parents in exchange for that payment. Likewise, none of the intended parents appear to have authorized that payment. Prior to these transfers, the intended parents had a claim against SEAM to recover their escrow funds, as they were never assets of SEAM's to begin with. Remember, those funds don't belong to SEAM or Dominique. She's holding them. She's essentially holding them, keeping those funds safe, and is therefore supposed to transfer them when it's time to do so. Mr. Davidson testified that none of SEAM's known bank accounts have funds sufficient to pay SEAM's creditors' claims. Therefore, SEAM is insolvent. The intended parents have a probable right of recovery because it appears that SEAM and Dominique have caused SEAM's assets to be transferred to Hall, Denson, Vegan Bay Studios, Vegan Bay Properties, and Nikki Green LLC in order to hinder, delay, or defraud SEAM's creditors. Did she not know people were going to be able to figure this out? I just don't understand how people think that you're not going to be able to see right through this. The evidence does not show that SEAM received reasonably equivalent value for the transfer of assets to Dominique Hall, Life Escrow, and or Dynasty Capital. SEAM is insolvent or became insolvent shortly after the transfers were made or any obligation was incurred. It is likely that without a restraint, the defendants will further transfer SEAM's assets for less than equivalent value in order to hinder or delay SEAM's creditors. Remember, the whole building is up for sale for, I think, $3.5 million, and you can get the equipment too, which, I don't know, sounds like the equipment that might have been listed on the taxes. Therefore, there is a danger that a defendant's funds will be reduced or diverted pending trial. Accordingly, this court may issue an injunction against further disposition by SEAM or any transferee, or both, or the assets transferred or of other property. Likewise, once the intended parents obtain a judgment, this court may levy execution on the assets transferred or the proceeds thereof. They can go after that equipment, they can go after that property. Because remember now, some of that property is now in Hall's name. He paid $10 for it. He paid $10 for it. The court further finds that if this temporary restraining order is not issued, the intended parents will likely incur an injury which outweighs any injury defendants may incur. Furthermore, the equities dictate that it is reasonable to enjoin defendants and any entities owned or controlled by them. So all those new things they tried to come up with, controlled by them, from transferring, diverting, conveying, assigning, just getting rid of the properties. We're saying no. And you see them all listed there. So that's what's going on. Let's see what the court finally says here. It is therefore ordered that for the duration of this lawsuit, defendants Surrogacy, Escrow Management LLC, Dominique Side, Anthony Hall, Life Escrow LLC, enjoined defendants, all of these defendants, and any entities owned or controlled by them and their respective officers. You see all of that listed there. Even the banking and or financial institutions acting in participation with or instructions from any of these parties are hereby restrained and enjoined. So you see there, they cannot do anything. They cannot do anything. Directly or indirectly transferring, can't do any of that. Look, yep, anything in the name of Dominique, directly or indirectly transferring. Look, anything controlled by Anthony Hall here is not limited to real estate, personal property, like all of this, personal property, his personal property. Directly or indirectly transferring anything owned by Life Escrow. And you have SEAM's bank account down there. And there you go. There's the order. This order shall not be effective until the intended parents jointly file with this court a bond or cash in lieu of bond in the amount of $100. Signed July 17th, 424. And there you have Anthony Hall agreeing to this. And whoever that is. So that's it. I mean, that's a lot. And it gives you a lot more details, very specific details about what has been going on in this case. So I hope that brings you up to speed. Like I said, I'm going to be breaking this down a little bit more, looking in detail at some of the properties, some of the transactions. Again, just the properties themselves give us a lot to talk about. And we're going to go back and look at the complaint. I think it was amended, so we'll be looking at the amended complaint. But if you feel as badly for these parents as I do, please, drop a heart in the comments and let me know your thoughts. All right. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and peace.